Pride West Group March in London, 1994, Rep 45120/ph/1. Bristol Archives. Sources for research: lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. History. Online catalog archives.bristol.gov.uk. Website www.bristolmuseums.org.uk/bristol-archives. Email archives@bristol.gov.uk. Telephone 011792242224. 2. Contents. Introduction page 3. LGBTQ+ terminology page 4. About this guide page 4. Using our collections page 5. Online resources page 5. LGBTQ+ material at Bristol Archives. Organizational records page 7. Activists and personal papers page 8. Other evidence of LGBTQ+ lives page 9. Case studies page 13. Useful websites page 15. Further reading page 16. Other LGBTQ+ material in Bristol page 17. Other significant LGBTQ+ collections in the UK page 18. We are grateful to the donors of personal and organizational collections included in this guide. 3. Introduction. There are many different sources you can use to research the history of LGBTQ+ people. Bristol Archives holds a number of collections relating to LGBTQ+ organizations and people. These are listed in the source guide and can be viewed on our online catalog. However, these collections are not the only archival sources for LGBTQ+ history. Records relating to LGBTQ+ people may be found across many of our collections. This source guide aims to highlight collections which may be useful and relevant for researchers of LGBTQ+ history. Because of the historic legal and social persecution of LGBTQ+ people, there are particular challenges researchers may need to recognize and overcome. These include terminology. Many words we commonly use for LGBTQ+ people, e.g. trans and lesbian, are relatively modern and will only appear in more recent records. Similarly, older records of LGBTQ+ people may include language that is today considered outdated or offensive. See the next section of this guide for more advice about terminology. Absence or obscurity of LGBTQ+ sources. Historically, many LGBTQ+ people hid or did not express their sexual and/or gender identities due to contemporary taboos, morals, and laws, so that these aspects of their lives were recorded euphemistically or not at all. For example, in the 1950s and 1960s, personal diaries were used in court to convict homosexual men, so for many it became safer not to create written records in the first place. Where it exists, documentary evidence may not be explicit or obvious, and LGBTQ+ perspectives may need to be interpreted. For example, same-sex couples may be described as close friendships. Loss of LGBTQ+ sources. Where LGBTQ+ histories were explicitly recorded, they may have since been lost, hidden, or destroyed. LGBTQ+ people may have done this themselves to hide their identities for their own safety. Alternatively, others may have wished to suppress LGBTQ+ material. The Diaries of N. Lister, 1791–1840, popularly known as Gentleman Jack, are an interesting example. Anne wrote sections of her diaries in code, hiding details of her lesbian relationships. Her descendants managed to decipher them but hid them again, physically, because of their content. The diaries were not published for almost a century after the code was cracked. They are now held by West Yorkshire Archive Services. Authorship. Where records of LGBTQ+ people have survived, their contents may be Affected by the perspectives of the record's creators. Historic negative attitudes mean that many of our older collections contain records which were not created by or for LGBTQ+ people and were instead designed to control, malign or punish them, for example, court and prison records or hospital records. In the last century, social attitudes have shifted significantly and LGBTQ+ people have become more able to express and document their identities, lives, and communities. Archive collections created or gathered by LGBTQ+ people range from records of activism and community activities to personal papers of LGBTQ+ individuals. 4. Depositing LGBTQ+ sources. LGBTQ+ collections may include sensitive personal information. Against a background of stigma, discrimination, and criminalization, LGBTQ+ material generated by the community themselves has not always been recognized by archivists or specifically collected. LGBTQ+ people may have chosen not to deposit their material in official archives, or to restrict access for their own security or peace of mind. Restricted sources. More recent records may include sensitive information about people who are still alive and are subject to data protection legislation. These records will be restricted, and this will be noted in the collection descriptions on our online catalog. Please contact us if you wish to view these records. Catalog descriptions. Archive catalogs include the title and a brief description of a document but do not reproduce the document's content in full. This may make relevant material hard to find as LGBTQ+ content will not be explicitly highlighted in the catalog. Catalogs are constantly being updated. Omissions which might have been made in the past due to prejudice or simply not recognizing the nature of the content are corrected where found. Archival research can be difficult, and researching LGBTQ+ history may be especially challenging, but we hope you will find that it is a rewarding experience. If you have any questions or difficulties, please contact us and we will try our best to help you. If you believe we have missed the LGBTQ+ significance of collections we hold, please let us know so we can better highlight these in the future. LGBTQ+ terminology. The Victoria and Albert Museum, V&A, has a guide to modern LGBTQ+ terminology. Available on this link, and the National Archives, TNA, has a list of historically used terms. As part of their Sexuality and Gender Identity Source Guide, available on this link. This terminology can be used for searching our catalogs, but remember that many of these terms are time and context specific. While they may be used in documents, they may not appear in catalog entries. About this guide. This source guide highlights some key collections and individual documents for exploring Bristol's LGBTQ+ history, but it is not an exhaustive list. To find further material, visit our online catalog. We have also created a category for LGBTQ+ sources. 5. Using our collections. To find out more information about visiting Bristol Archives, please visit our website. Resources which are available online are highlighted in blue boxes like this. Online resources. Our catalogs. The Bristol Archives catalog describes the collections that are available for research at Bristol Archives. In general, it provides only a short description of the material, which anyone can come to consult in our public search room. However, we have digitized some large image collections, and these can be viewed within catalog entries. The British Empire and Commonwealth collection, also housed and viewable at Bristol Archives, has its own catalog which is searched in the same way. The title of records in the catalog are based on the titles given to them by their creators. Catalog descriptions are brief summaries of a document's content. There are a number of techniques you can use to refine and improve a search of our catalog. For tips and explanations, see the help page. You may have more success if you are able to use a wider range and combination of search terms. It is also very useful to know what type of record might hold the kind of information you are looking for. This source guide provides suggestions of collections which are known to include, or are likely to include, LGBTQ+ material. Outstories Bristol. Outstories Bristol is a local history group that collects and preserves the social history and recollections of LGBTQ+ people living in or associated with Bristol, as well as information. On their own website, some of their research is included as a layer on Know Your Place. Bristol. This digital mapping resource for Bristol also provides access to some digitized heritage collections from the city's museums and library, as well as the council's historic environment record data. 6. Family history sites. If you are researching individual people, sites such as ancestry.co.uk and findmypast.co.uk are useful sources. These provide access to census records, trade directories and other records about individuals. These are both subscription websites, but access is free at Bristol Archives and Bristol Libraries. Newspapers. Online newspaper libraries can be a valuable source of information, reporting on local events and activities such as court cases or controversial events. The British newspaper archive can be accessed for free at Bristol Archives and Bristol Libraries. A number of other online newspaper resources can also be accessed via Bristol Libraries. When searching newspapers, it is important to use the terms used by the press of the time and not by the terms that are acceptable today. 7. LGBTQ+ material at Bristol Archives. Organizational records. These records relate to organizations either run by and for LGBTQ+ people, for example, campaign groups and support groups, or organizations, while not specifically LGBTQ+ related, whose records contain material relating to LGBTQ+ people and/or activities, for example, art organizations with material relating to LGBTQ+ artists. The dates given for each organization relate to the dates of the material we hold, not the dates the organization was active. Arnolfini, 1961 to 2020, Ref 43371. The Arnolfini is an art gallery in central Bristol which has exhibited the work of LGBTQ+ artists, including Robert Mapplethorpe, Ref 43371/department/ig/1/m/8, DV8, Ron Athy, Franco B. and Tom Marshman. Their archive of sound recordings includes a talk about the work of Derek Jarman, Ref 43371/department/ed/4/207/1. The Arnolfini also served as a refuge, provided public facilities, and held film nights, protests, and meetings which are considered the precursors to Bristol Pride events, for example, Ref 40765/x/2, a program relating to Bristol Gay Festival in 1985. Bristol Gay Centre, 1976 to 2013, Ref 40765. The centre, open from 1978 to 1983, contained a cafe and spaces for parties, meetings, and discos. It also provided premises for Bristol Gay Switchboard, see below. The collection includes administrative records, correspondence, financial records, minutes, and newsletters. Bristol Gay Switchboard, 1976 to 2011, Ref 45120. Bristol Lesbian and Gay Switchboard was established in 1975 as Gay Switchboard Bristol by a collective working from Bristol's Women's Centre. The collection includes administrative, financial, operational, photographs and printed material. The service was wound up in 2012 and taken over by the London Lesbian and Gay Switchboard, now Switchboard. The papers of this successor organization are held by the Bishopsgate Institute. Records of Gay West, 1972 to 2019, Ref 45281. Gay West is a social and support group covering Bristol, Bath, and the surrounding area. It can trace its origins back to April 1970 when the Bristol group of the Campaign for Homosexual Equality, Che Bristol, was founded. The collection includes the records of the organization and a large amount of publicity material from other LGBTQ+ organizations. Some parts of this collection are restricted at the request of the depositor. Outstories Bristol, 1981 to 2011, Ref 46561. Outstories Bristol is Bristol's LGBTQ+ history society. It has worked with Bristol Archives and Bristol Culture for many years to create, record, and share archives and objects from Bristol's LGBTQ+ past. Their website displays their projects including the Mapping LGBT+ Bristol and the groundbreaking Revealing Stories exhibition in 2013. The collection 8. Includes records relating to Bristol Gay Centre, also known as the Bristol Lesbian and Gay Centre Project, programs, flyers, and newsletters. Freedom Youth, 1995 to 2016, Ref 45795. One of the oldest LGBTQ+ youth services in the UK, now part of Off the Record Bristol, a mental health social movement. Freedom Youth provides safe social groups, information, support, and opportunities to young people in the city. The collection includes administrative, financial, and illustrative material. Shout Out Radio, 2000s to 2010s, Ref 46459. Shout Out Radio is a magazine radio show for the local LGBTQ+ community, on BCFMA community radio station based in Bristol. The collection includes papers related to Shout Out Radio, Bristol City Council related reports, flyers, leaflets, booklets and magazines, and national publications by Stonewall and the government. Posters from the LGBT Society, University of the West of England, 2011, Ref 45677. Now known as the UWE LGBT+ Society, the group is a hub for information and social organization for LGBTQ+ students and staff. The collection contains posters advertising student events, activists and personal papers. The following collections are the personal records and collections of individuals from the Bristol area. Our activists' papers include correspondence relating to campaigning as well as records of groups in which the individuals were involved. There is considerable overlap and some duplication of records in these collections with the records in our organizational collections. Listed above. Personal papers may provide evidence of LGBTQ+ lifestyles and relationships, but due to their illegal or taboo status, they were historically rarely documented. Some of our collections are likely to include material which reflects the lives of LGBTQ+ people but may contain little or no explicit evidence of their LGBTQ+ identity. Records of Charles Beaton relating to various organizations and charities, 1975. 2001, Ref 45248. Charles Beaton has been socially and politically active in Bristol for decades. His collection is a rich source of LGBTQ+ related material demonstrating the social attitudes and the campaigning activities of the time. It includes records relating to action against homophobic hate crimes, HIV support charity the Aled Richards Trust, the Avon and Somerset Lesbian and Gay Policing Initiative, the Campaign for Homosexual Equality, Bristol, and the Labour Campaign for Lesbian and Gay Rights. 9. Records of Robert Howes relating to Bristol and Southwest LGBT organizations. 1983 to 2015, Rep 44881. Robert Howes is a Bristol-born researcher and activist. This collection includes material collected during activities with Outstories and while researching his book, Gay West, Rev. BK/2500. It also includes lobbying correspondence with various political figures. Organizations represented include Gay West, Amicus, Bristol Gay Centre, the ALED, Richards Trust, Avon Pride, the Lesbian, Gay and Bisexual, LGB, Forum and Outstories. Bristol. Content includes newsletters, event programs, information leaflets, and some administrative records of Outstories. Robert Howes has also donated collections to the Bishopsgate Institute and Cambridge University Library. Papers of Doris K. Flynn, sculptor, and Joan Tuckett, actor, of East Dundry, near Bristol, 1890s to 1940s, Rep 40214. Doris Flynn and Joan Tuckett lived together and worked in Bristol most of their lives. There is no written evidence that they were a couple, but it is widely understood that they were. Flynn was a celebrated sculptor and Tuckett was a teacher and theatre director. Both were very active socialists and members of the Communist Party. Their papers include sketchbooks, photographs, correspondence, diaries, and press cuttings. Other evidence of LGBTQ+ lives. Legal and criminal records. Male homosexual activity was partially decriminalised in England and Wales in 1967. Female homosexual activity was never criminalized but was socially taboo. As a result, many records which provide evidence about LGBTQ+ people come from legal and criminal records. The language used in these records may obscure the nature of the crime. For example, sodomy may describe consensual sex between men, but could also refer to religious dissent, especially Catholicism, or treason, bestiality, rape, public indecency or other sex-based crimes. Other terms to look out for include soliciting, immoral, indecency, buggery and references to a disorderly house. This term could mean prostitution or gambling, instead of, or as well as, homosexual activity. It's worth remembering that spellings of these words and the names of people involved may vary. In the 20th century, police entrapped men into activities which would be considered public indecency, known as cottaging, in order to charge them. However, most records of these convictions are currently restricted under data protection legislation. For an example of using criminal records, see the case study on page 13. Details of arrests, convictions and punishment may be found in several record series. Examples are given over the page. 10. Courts including the Quarter Sessions, Ref. JQS, and Magistrates Court, Ref. JMag. There are many examples of references to disorderly house S in the Quarter Sessions. Papers, Ref. JQS/P/766/1, Ref. JQS/P/779, Ref. JQS/P/812. In the 20th century, pairs of men are listed in the docket books of the Court of Quarter Sessions, Ref. JQS/D, for the offense of gross indecency. A full list of our court collections is available on our online catalog. Prison records, multiple cases of buggery are listed in the jail delivery fiats from 1741. 1771, Ref. JQS/GD/1. Transcriptions of these are available on Richter Norton's website. A full list of our prison collections is available on our online catalog. Town Clerk's Administrative Papers, Ref. TC/ADM. The town clerk was one of the two most senior officers of the Corporation of Bristol, the predecessor of Bristol City Council. The records of the town clerk's office include documents relating to law and justice. Similar to the court records, there are references to disorderly houses throughout the collection, including in Ref. TC/ADM/box/22/17 and Ref. TC/ADM/box/73/7. A more unusual example is an information witness statement used in the trial of two men convicted of buggery, Ref. TC/ADM/box/6/9/1. See the case study on page 13. Printed notice entitled A List of Persons Executed at Bristol since the year 1741, being a space of 94 years, c. 1835, Ref. 12967, which includes pairs of men hanged for unnatural crimes. Further research may reveal LGBTQ+ relevant material being found in the following legal collections. Judicial records of the Diocese of Bristol, Ref. EP/J. Consistory, Church, Courts. Historically had jurisdiction over a wide range of legal matters including sexual behavior. Although cases relating to sexuality would have been a small proportion of the court's business. Police records of Bristol Constabulary, 1836 to 1974, and Avon and Somerset Constabulary, 1974, Ref. Poll. It can take time to find relevant material within these records, although newspaper reports may be useful for identifying cases to investigate. Medical and health records. Homosexuality and gender dysphoria has historically been treated as a mental disorder. Especially in the 19th and 20th centuries, and sometimes in the 21st century. We hold records for a number of hospitals and asylums in the Bristol area. However, records of individuals may be restricted under data protection legislation. A list of health and welfare collections is available on our online catalog. 11. Material related to HIV/AIDS and the LGBTQ+ community can be found in the following collections. The Library Collection of the Bristol Racial Equality Council, BREC, Ref. 43129/lib. Contains published material on topics of relevance to BREC's work from a wide range of sources and organizations. In particular, material from the Terence Higgins Trust, Aled Richards Trust and other HIV/AIDS organizations can be found under Ref. 43129/lib/he/3. LGBTQ+ relevant material can also be found in other parts of the library collection such as employment, Ref. 43129/lib/e, and social services, Ref. 43129/lib/ss. Minutes of Bristol City Council, particularly the Health and Public Protection Committee. Ref. M/BCC/HPP, whose minute books provide an index at the front of each volume. Literature and papers relating to HIV/AIDS in the records of the Diocese of Bristol's Board for Social Responsibility, Ref. EP/Adl 2002/J1/5. Miscellaneous material relating to HIV/AIDS can also be found across the collections of the various Bristol LGBTQ+ organizations held at Bristol Archives, see above for organizational records. Political records. Committee minutes for Bristol City Council, Ref. M/BCC, may record discussions and decisions relating to LGBTQ+ issues made by the Council. For example, the issue of children of lesbian and gay parents being bullied in schools is discussed by the Equalities Committee in March 1992, Ref. M/BCC/EQU/1/4. Minutes are arranged chronologically but are often unindexed. Knowing the date that a topic was discussed by a committee is helpful. Historic newspapers can be a useful resource for establishing this information. See the Corn Exchange case study on page 14. Material about LGBTQ+ politics and events can be found in the various Labour Party and Liberal Party collections we hold, particularly in minutes, correspondence, and printed materials. Examples include motions concerning LGBTQ+ issues and publicity about LGBTQ+ organizations and demonstrations. However, these records are not thematically organized and LGBTQ+ material is scattered throughout the collections. Additionally, some political collections have restricted access. A list of political collections, including political parties, activist, and trades union collections, is available on our online catalog. British Empire and Commonwealth Collection, BECC. Bristol Archives is home to the British Empire and Commonwealth Collection, a collection of objects, artworks, photographs, films, papers, and sound archives donated by British people who lived and worked in many parts of the former Empire and Commonwealth. 2. Examples of LGBTQ+ lives are given here. It is probable that there will be further material across the collection. Evidence is likely to be obscure or use outdated terms which are now considered offensive. 12. Chisman Collection 8, Scenes in New and Old Delhi, 1940s, Ref 2006/005/1/8. This 1940s film includes a segment featuring street performers, one of whom may be a hijra, a transgender person. Wright Collection, Diaries, 1940s, Ref 2000/084/1/2/5. Wright worked in East Africa and on April 4, 1940 recalls accompanying a hermaphrodite who wanted P.T. poll tax exemption to Lowenthal to be examined and photographed. Newspapers, publications, and media. Historic newspapers for the city are held at Bristol Reference Library and are also available on the British Newspaper Archive. See online resources above for more information. Some of our archive collections include newspaper cuttings and scrapbooks. But we do not systematically collect published sources. Examining historic newspapers can provide evidence of LGBTQ+ stories, but this research requires time and diligence. You may also find noteworthy Bristol stories reported in newspapers elsewhere in the UK and overseas. Colonial newspapers were able to report British news with fewer restrictions. Trove contains Australian newspapers and American newspapers can be found on the Library of Congress Chronicling America website. As with other sources, terminology may be obscure, euphemistic, or offensive. 13. Case studies. The following case studies are intended to demonstrate how archive sources can be used to explore LGBTQ+ lives. Men hang together for unnatural crimes. Some people convicted of unnatural crimes in the 19th and 20th centuries were pairs of men caught having sex. Researching this topic can be difficult because of euphemistic language used in records. The term unnatural crimes referred to various crimes, including sex between men, but detail is challenging to find. A project by Outstories in 2013 found that records relating to punishment proved to be more useful source for LGBTQ+ history research. Bristol Archives holds a notice printed circa 1835 titled A List of Persons Executed at Bristol since the year 1741, being a space of 94 years, Ref 12967. Two pairs of men, Arnold and Critchley Sick, 1753, and B. Loveday and J. Burke, 1781, are listed as being hanged together for unnatural crime. Historian Richter Norton cites contemporary newspaper reports which confirm that all 4 men were convicted for homosexual activity. He also found the men listed in jail delivery fiats, ref. JQS/GD, of which the earlier entries, 1741 to 1799, have been transcribed by Bristol Record Society. Since the Outstories research, a further reference to 2 of these men, William Critchard and Richard Arnold, has been found at Bristol Archives, ref. TC/ADM/box/6/9/1. This is the witness statement of the landlord of the Swan Inn, who states he saw Critchard and Arnold engaged in a sexual act. The Radnor Hotel. The Radnor on St. Nicholas Street is thought to be Bristol's first gay bar. Outstories. Researchers used a combination of trade directories, ref. DIR, and licensing documents, ref. JMAG/J/3, to put together a history of landlords and license owners for the venue. They also collected first-person testimony from Peggy Hancock, who worked in the pub for many years. Building plans, ref. Building plans/volume 181/62Y, and historic photographs of the site, ref. 35529/22, help to confirm and augment stories told through oral histories. For instance, it was said that for a time before the partial decriminalization of homosexuality in 1967, LGBTQ+ customers could take advantage of the pub's 2 bars, the front bar being in view of the window onto the street, but the back bar being behind a curtain, and in which LGBTQ+ clientele felt more comfortable. 14. Bristol Gay Centre at the Corn Exchange. Outstories were able to research an incident in the 1970s when a Conservative councillor unsuccessfully objected to Bristol Gay Centre hiring the Corn Exchange for a meeting. The indexes of the minutes of Bristol City Council committee meetings were checked, ref. M/BCC, but no relevant references were found. Newspapers at Bristol Reference Library provided the date of the incident. Councillor fails again to halt festival, Bristol Mercury 6. April 1978. This allowed the relevant entry to be found, by date, indexed under Council motion simply as Corn Exchange, ref. M/BCC/BC/1/96. Grave of Ellen Drew Brashear and Amelia Blanford Edwards. Ellen Drew Brashear was the partner of the writer, traveler, and archaeologist, Amelia Blanford Edwards. They were buried together at St. Mary's Church in Henbury in 1892. Under a single memorial which names Ellen as for more than 30 years the beloved friend of B. Amelia Edwards. In 2016, their grave was given listed status, and the Historic England listing includes a transcription of the inscription on the memorial. Their burials are recorded in the Parish Burial Register, ref. P.Hen/R/4/D, and Bishop's Transcript, ref. EP/V/4. Their relationship is acknowledged in an index of Henbury burials, ref. P.Hen/R/4/E. 15. Useful websites. Finding Records of Sexuality and Gender Identity History, Guide by the National Archives. Including guidance on historical language. List of documents related to LGBT history at the National Archives, identified by theme. The National Archives also provide a free teaching pack re this topic LGBTQ+ history in the Archives, the National Archives. Outstories Bristol, Bristol's LGBTQ+ History Society. Website includes profiles of important LGBTQ+ icons and allies, historic local venues, and a history of pride in Bristol. Lesbian and Gay News Media Archive, Lagna, an online catalogue of the Lagna collection at the Bishopsgate Institute comprising approximately 200,000 newspaper cuttings as well as photos, badges, t-shirts, books, and more. Digital Transgender Archive, an online hub for digitized records relating to transgender history from archives around the world. Richter Norton's Gay History and Literature website includes sourcebooks of LGBTQ+ people in primary sources from the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. Studies in Scarlet, Marriage and Sexuality in the US and UK, 1815 to 1914, narratives drawn from the Harvard Law School Library's trial collections. The Logbooks podcast, based on records of the Switchboard LGBT+ helpline at the Bishopsgate Institute. The Homosaurus, an international linked data vocabulary of LGBTQ+ terms. Exploring LGBTQ+ history at National Trust Places, a guide to the National Trust's work on highlighting LGBTQ+ histories relating to their properties and collections, including case studies of historical figures. Queer Heritage and Collections Network, a subject specialist network with institutional members across all nations and regions of the UK, founded in May 2020 to increase the understanding of, access to, and engagement with LGBTQ+ heritage. 16. Further reading. The following is a non-exhaustive list of LGBTQ+ research guides or books with specific Bristol LGBTQ+ content. Those listed here with the reference number are available to view at Bristol Archives. A Practical Guide to Searching LGBTQ Historical Records by Norna Shopland, 2020, Ref. BK/2741. Free to Be Me, Celebrating 21 Years of Freedom Youth by Rosa Fanti and Laurie Striak. Ref 45795/IM/PM/1. Gateway to Heaven, 50 Years of Lesbian and Gay Oral History by Claire Summerskill, 2012. Ref. BK/2740. Gay West, Civil Society, Community, and LGBT History in Bristol and Bath 1970 to 2010 by Robert Howes, 2011, Ref. BK/2500. Pride Pop and Politics, Music, Theater, and LGBT Activism, 1970 to 2022 by Daryl W. Bullock. Out of the Ordinary, A Life of Gender and Spiritual Transitions, The Autobiography of Michael Dillon, 2016. The Women Who Built Bristol, 1184 to 2018 by Jane Duffus, 2018, Ref. BK/2661. The Women Who Built Bristol, Volume 2 by Jane Duffus, 2019, Ref. BK/2706. 17. Other LGBTQ+ history material in Bristol. Bristol Museums. Queen's Road, Bristol, BS81RL. Tel 011792235571. Email bristolmuseums@bristol.gov.uk. Website www.bristolmuseums.org.uk/collections. Material related to Bristol's LGBTQ+ community from the 1970s onwards, including oral history interviews collected through the Outstories project. Interviewees include Peter Main, Bristol's first openly gay Lord Mayor, Darren Carter, a director of Bristol Pride, Dale Wakefield, the female founder of Switchboard, and historians Andy Foyle and George Gosling. Summaries of these can be found by searching the catalogue using the keyword Outstories. Bristol Reference Library. Bristol Central Library, College Green, Bristol, BS15TL. Tel 011790372002. Email refaninfo@bristol.gov.uk. Website www.bristol.gov.uk/libraries-archives. For historic newspapers collections and other local history material. Feminist Archives South. Special collections, University of Bristol Arts and Social Sciences Library. Bristol, BS 812. Tel 011792888014. Email special-collections@bristol.ac.uk. Website feministarchivesouth.org.uk. Feminist Archives South's blog on their website has an LGBT tag showing their LGBTQ+ collections and projects. 18. Theatre Collection. University of Bristol, Van Dyck Building, Cant Ox Close, Bristol, BS 81 up. Tel 011733150045. Email theatre-collection@bristol.ac.uk. Website www.bristol.ac.uk/theatre-collection. The theatre collection holds museum, archive, and library collections related to the history of theatre and theatrical practice in the UK and internationally. The collections include those of playwright Kevin Elio, whose work often examined gay relationships, as well as the designer Oliver Messel, whose collection contains personal papers as well as design material. Other significant LGBTQ+ collections in the UK. The following two organizations have particularly large LGBTQ+ collections, but material relating to LGBTQ+ history may be held by archives, libraries, museums, and other organizations all over the country. Bishopsgate Institute Special Collections and Archives. 230 Bishopsgate, London EC2M4QH. Tel 020-73929270. Email library@bishopsgate.org.uk. Website www.bishopsgate.org.uk/archives. One of the most extensive collections on LGBTQ+ history, politics, and culture in the UK. London Metropolitan Archives. 40, Northampton Road, London EC1R0HB. Tel 020-73323820. Email ask.lma@cityoflondon.gov.uk. Website www.cityoflondon.gov.uk/lma. Social media http://www.facebook.com/lgbthistory. London Metropolitan Archives holds personal and public records of LGBTQ+ history.